So, one of the things victims of abuse spend a lot of time doing, like after they figured out they're in an abuse dynamic and they're out of the dynamic and safe, they start doing research. Nobody does research like victims of abuse. They are on the internet giving themselves a college course education in psychology, basically, uh, because we don't want it to happen again. We want to avoid this in the future. And so, victims of abuse are learning what's abuse, what are the signs of abuse, what kind of people are abusers, all in an effort to not repeat this. And I think a lot of it has to do with how traumatic it is to love someone and to pour goodness into the relationship and to be kind to them and to do all of these like good things. And they take it and demand more. They take it and then they tell you what a bad person you are. They take it and use that as a basis for thinking that you're weak and that they're strong, because if you were giving it to them, then therefore they deserve it. It's a way of thinking that is completely inexplicable to victims of abuse, because it's not how victims of abuse think. And so one of the things that I had figured out in terms of how to develop my own discernment was to pay attention to how people respond to goodness. A lot of people actually see goodness as weakness. If you are good to them, they think, "Oh, you're a weak person," or "You're a fake person," or they just may hate you and want to destroy you. Like the worse they are, the more they hate goodness. There's no live and let live. It's the people who see the tiny libraries and get like so enraged that someone's trying to do a good thing in the world that they, get out the bat and like try and bash it, or they run into it with their car or do something destructive. You know, it angers them on like a core level. Their response to goodness is anger or entitlement or assuming negative intent behind the good action. Oh, well, everyone's manipulative, this is just another manipulate, blah blah blah. Like you'll get a lot of those like argument logic guys that approach the world that way, and they are telling on themselves, right? So you're sitting here and you're trying to explain, oh no, that's not how everyone in the world is, I'm not like that. And they have a view of the world that is essentially compromised. There's nothing you can do to quote unquote fix it, because they're not interested in fixing their view on the world. It makes them feel empowered or superior or whatever it is. That's how the world makes sense to them. So coming in with yourself as proof does not change anything. Now, there's this person on Reddit who had a really great breakdown of what they called toxic generosity and their You Lasco fan. And these were the stages they gave of toxic generosity. They said toxic generosity is a real thing. Give once, you elicit appreciation. Give twice, you create anticipation. Give 3 times, you create expectation. Give 4 times, it becomes entitlement. Give 5 times, you establish dependency. Stop giving and you become an enemy. This applies to everything. Guys, unfortunately, this is like very true. The reason why it's hard for victims to understand is because this is not how victims of abuse operate. Also, victims of abuse often have low self-esteem. Maybe not at the beginning of the dynamic, but certainly by the middle and the end parts. Victims of abuse get to a point where they don't think that they are entitled to anything. So they are grateful for anything and everything, even things that they are legitimately entitled to. So yeah, like your parents, for example, they may make you feel like you are not entitled to something that they legitimately are supposed to be doing. Um, but essentially, abusers, they hijack relationship norms, healthy relationship tools to accomplish their ends. Their ends are always selfish. And the thing is, abusers misthink. They misthink, and therefore, if you pay attention to how they respond to goodness, you can see the misthinking often. So if they are thinking, oh, if someone's being nice, it's manipulative, they're letting you know how they think. If someone's being nice, they're being fake. They're letting you know how they think. If someone is nice and they think that means weakness, they're letting you know how they think. Oh, also, the thing about weakness. This one I took an embarrassingly long time for me to figure out. Some people seem like good ethical people. And then, you get into a dynamic with them and you're nice and you're kind, and suddenly it's like a sleeper agent has activated and they start being abusive. And it's so confusing. Like, what is happening here? What happened was they weren't nice, ethical people. They just didn't have the opportunity. The boundaries were up, and so they didn't have the opportunity to access what they could otherwise access. But as soon as they are given the opportunity, it's like, okay, well now I can leverage that for more. And now I can leverage that against the person who's giving it. So when you're being in and of yourself, being a person who is pouring your goodness out on others, some people get triggered by that in a negative way. And those people you should watch out for. Don't get into an argument with them, clock the behavior, and and bounce, like unsubscribe from whatever that situation is. If it's your parents, you're going to think you have a relationship with them that doesn't exist, because we want to love our care, like we're wired to love our caregivers regardless of how they treat us. And so it may be hard to let go of reality for something like that. For most people, the hope is that they can use this kind of thinking to not get into the relationship dynamics with a friend or significant other. And so then they're not trapped. But when you were raised by these people, you have to make a different calculus inside yourself about reality and what reality is. And it is difficult. So anyway, once you recognize that this person, the way they respond to goodness is off, is upside down from what it should be, if they become jealous when you're doing well or competitive, right? Normal parents are not jealous when their kids do well. Normal partners are not jealous when their partner does well, right? Partner. So if you see these upside down responses to what should fundamentally be a positive thing, they're letting you know how they think. That lets you know kind of what their view on the world is, and often their view of you. Uh, anyway, I hope this makes sense, and I'll talk to you next time.